Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. BestBell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.
Hey everyone, welcome back to BestBell Fantasy Football. I'm Bradley Stalder, and tonight we're gonna talk about Thursday night football. Give you a little bit of a Thursday night football preview. We're gonna talk Giants. We're gonna talk the muddy backfield. We're gonna talk, of course, San Francisco 49ers, and of course, we're gonna talk about Kareem Hunt and Cam Akers. This is big news. We got some running back news today. Kareem Hunt signing with the Cleveland Browns, or re-signing, I should say. And then Cam Akers traveling from the Los Angeles Rams after they put him on the trade block during week 2. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Talk about all that and more tonight on the BestBell Fantasy Football Tips and Advice Show. Okay, well, let's get into it. Let's give it a little preview of the Thursday night game. And we've already got some injury info from the Giants. They're going to be without Andrew Thomas, their tackle, which is going to be a big problem for them on the offensive line, facing off against the San Francisco 49ers, one of the better defenses in the NFL, especially the front seven. They're going to be putting up pressure against the Giants' offensive line. It's not just that the offensive line is in trouble for the Giants. It's that you also have Saquon Barkley, who is expected to miss this game. He is officially ruled out for the Thursday night game against the New York Giants. It's going to complicate things a bit. So the Giants are traveling to the West Coast. They don't have their starting tackle. They don't have Barkley, who's going to be sidelined approximately 3 weeks. Seems to be the timeline for Barkley, which is unfortunate because we really like, what Barkley has been doing so far this year. And with other running backs going down throughout this start of the season, like J.K. Dobbins, for instance, and Nick Chubb, you were hoping that other early round running backs would be able to produce for you, like your Saquon Barkley's. But unfortunately, Barkley is in a little bit of trouble for not only missing this game because he's out for this one, but also for a few future games, and how that ankle sprain, that normal ankle sprain, is going to be, affecting him over the next couple weeks when he returns. So it's not just a can he get on the field, it's a return to Saquon Barkley type of play. So that's our concern, I think, with our Saquon Barkley in the short term. So even if he is active, I mean, they get a 10-day break until until week 4 for the New York Giants. But the San Francisco 49ers are 10.5-point favorites at home. The over-under is only 44. There's not a lot of optimism from a macro perspective for the New York Giants in this game. So on the road, big road dogs, not a high-scoring match. I think the Giants are going to lean pretty heavily on Darren Waller, and they may try to spice some things up. We'll talk about a few players that I would be interested in very deep leagues taking shots on, or if you want to fill your DFS Thursday night lineups with, just the high upside guys and the spike week type of players. And I'll also talk about the running backs that you should or maybe shouldn't be targeting in this game. So keep those in mind as we're going through tonight's game, tomorrow's game, in preparation for tomorrow's game. Tonight, we're also going to take a look at the San Francisco 49ers. As I mentioned, 10.5-point favorites. They're also dealing with some injuries. one that we're monitoring right now is Brandon Ayuk. So Brandon Ayuk, he's been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. If we look across all wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk is number 2 in PFF receiving grade, 1/10 of a mark behind Tyreek Hill. It goes Hill, Ayuk, Jefferson, if you can believe it or not. He had an amazing week 1, catching all 8 of his targets. And then, 3 of 6 in week 2, but he's dealing with the shoulder injury and is officially questionable. And on a short week at home, they're expected, the 49ers are expected to win pretty easily. I'm pessimistic about Brandon Ayuk making it into your starting lineup. We'll talk more about Brandon Ayuk in a little bit, but if I'm preparing for Thursday, I would not prepare for Brandon Ayuk to be in your lineup. If he is there, it'll be a pleasant surprise. So as we're approaching this 49ers Giants game, I'm not interested in starting Brandon Ayuk unless we hear he is full go, he's all set. Like, I just don't see a reason why the 49ers early in the season, big home favorites on a short week, would be looking to roll out their best receiver, like downfield option. One could make the argument that Deebo Samuel can fill a significant role in the offense, and I think he will if Brandon Ayuk misses. But Deebo's role is very different from Brandon Ayuk's in this 49ers offense. So let's not get confused. Like Brandon Ayuk, probably the more polished down the field receiver. Deebo Samuel, though, weapon, can absolutely score, absolutely talented, can run routes. But when it comes to what the 49ers have seen from their wide receiver core so far, Brandon Ayuk is the top dog. So as you're approaching or thinking about who should I be starting in my lineups for Thursday night, be prepared to see Brandon Ayuk inactive. It's just my prediction. I don't have like inside knowledge. It's just what makes sense and is logical at this point, based on what we've heard, the news, and the circumstances. Okay, we can certainly answer some questions as well as you guys are getting in there. So throw some in the chat. Fernando Garate, thank you for jumping in. Appreciate you. Is Lamar for Addison, Gus Edwards, and Purdy a good trade? I have Chubb, Montgomery, and Garrett Wilson. So you're going to need some running back help because Monty may be missing, and especially because Chubb is going to be out the whole season. Oy vey. And Garrett Wilson. Yeah, you've been like decimated here. Now, Lamar he has a higher ceiling by far than Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy is going to give you pretty consistently like quarterback 12, quarterback 17, quarterback 15, quarterback 13. Like, it's unlikely that Brock Purdy busts for you. It's more likely that Brock Purdy is just going to give you a solid week and you'll just keep about your day. Right now, Brock Purdy is 10th among quarterbacks in fantasy points per game, 15.8. If we look at his game log, 16.8 in week 1 against the Rams, 14.7. So as I said, he's not going to bust for you, but I don't see, especially if Brandon Ayuk is out for this game, I don't see a ceiling game for Brock Purdy. So I'm not like looking to, with how badly you're decimated, you're going to need some Addison and Gus Edwards, especially given that Justice Hill is missing practice so far this week. He's off to the side. The Baltimore Ravens have already indicated that something is going on with Justice Hill because they've brought in Kenyon Drake to the practice squad. They've signed Melvin Gordon to the 53-man roster. Something is happening with Justice Hill. The Ravens are preparing. So I would not be looking to start Justice Hill either. Gus Edwards is going to be the guy, I think, that is what we're looking for. Okay, so Addison is a top 24 wide receiver. You've got a pretty solid wide receiver there. You've got, probably for the rest of the season, Gus Edwards is going to be, a high-end flex for you, and then Purdy is a high-floor quarterback. I don't see ceiling with those players except maybe Addison because of the pass volume in Minnesota. But other than that, I mean, you're in dire straits with how Chubb is out for a long time. Monty is day to day, according to the Lions staff. I haven't heard any different. And then Garrett Wilson, yeah, Wilson is going to need to have some spike weeks, but his floor is a lot scarier now with Zach Wilson at the quarterback position. So I think yeah, especially if you need some wins, given how tough your club is, you're going to need to make some moves. And I don't mind this trade as tough as it sounds. I don't mind it in most leagues. All right, Spud 2009, Zay Jones or Tank Dell for week 3. 3 of my wide receivers are questionable. Well, Zay Jones was a combined 3 inches from scoring 2 touchdowns last week. He is questionable for this game, but I'm not too worried about Zay Jones. I haven't heard anything negative regarding, his availability at all. Okay, remember the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Houston Texans in Jacksonville. The Jaguars are 9.5-point favorites. The over-under is only 44, so I'd be surprised, if this game gets into a bit of a shootout, although the Houston Texans passing game has been a bit surprising. Nico Collins did pretty well last week. Tank Dell played very well. So we could see a solid flex game from Zay Jones here in week 2. And we also have to keep in mind that the Indianapolis Colts, who the Houston Texans just played, are one of the worst secondaries. Jacksonville is better. Okay. Jacksonville is better. Because when we look at fantasy points allowed, the Jacksonville Jaguars are middle of the pack, right? They've allowed 34 fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. So middle of the pack, nothing wild. So give me some Zay Jones because I want the winning team who's going to score more points against a bad defense. So give me Zay Jones. Okay, let's see who else. I got offered James Cook for Garrett Wilson. Should I take it? Yeah, you should be getting James Cook. Cook is a baller. Cook is a beast. Cook is a running back 1. I don't know if you know this, but he's top 12 in rush attempts, rush yards, PFF rush grade, yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced. Like this dude he's the real deal. And James Cook also a 13% target share. That's higher than Ramondre Stevenson so far. It's higher than Rashad White. It's higher than DeAndre Swift. All of those players profile as pass catching running backs. So yes, you should be attacking the running back position, especially because you have Chubb and Monty out. And I think this is a good buy high of James Cook. He's getting 15 to 20 touches every game in a Buffalo offense. And he's an efficient running back too. So this is the perfect storm he just hasn't fallen in the end zone the way we want. That is okay. That is okay. We just want more James Cook on our teams. There we go, Fernando. For those who are new and like the content, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Appreciate all y'all. Do you think a trade for ETN could happen if I give Ayuk and Connor? I wouldn't be going on my way to get Travis Etienne. I think Ayuk and Connor will be just fine for you. Mariano, I would not. Yeah, would you just keep them? I would keep them. Would I drop Zay Jones for Tank Dell? No, I wouldn't. I need to see some more from the Houston Texans because we know Indy has a bad secondary. So this is where we start to discern, was it because of the matchup or is it because he's an ascending wide receiver? And I do think that Tank Dell is an ascending wide receiver. I think that can be true. We can also say he's not ascended enough for us to be confident in him being the answer to our fantasy lineups. It may be a good matchup. It may be a time where the Indianapolis Colts are auto starts. You're playing your Baltimore Ravens and your flexes against the Colts. You're playing everyone you're playing almost everyone against the Chicago Bears. And yes, the Bears this week take on the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. The over-under for that game, by the way, is 47.5, one of the highest scoring on the week. And the Chiefs are favored by 12.5. Woof. Yeah, so give me a lot of, for instance, like we're gonna be very interested in flexing like Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Even though they've shown bust games in the past, Chicago Bears defense is so bad. And we're also starting like Isaiah Pacheco pretty confidently. Um, you can take a desperation shot on other plays in that Chiefs offense in very, very deep leagues, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do so. All right, cool. What do you think about dropping McKinnon? I struggle to know who to drop from my bench and never know if I should drop him for an up and coming running back or wide receiver. Yeah, it's a three-headed monster and it's ugly in Kansas City, right? Jerick McKinnon, we saw him just have an absolutely monstrous year last year because of the opportunity in the second half of the season, but also, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back. And we know that whoever is the running back who's getting touches in the backfield has a chance for touchdown upside. And we saw positive touchdown scoring, like a lot of touchdown scoring by Jerick McKinnon last year. And it's simply not the case that he's going to be able to easily replicate, all that. Jerick McKinnon right now, one rush on the season for -2 yards through the first 2 weeks. And even in the receiving game, even in the receiving game, Jerick McKinnon, 4 receptions through 2 games, only 5 targets, 34 total receiving yards through 2 games. He's droppable. His receiving grade is 45.9. It would not surprise me at all if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the one who takes on more of that role. But Isaiah Pacheco, got to give credit where credit's due, leads all running backs in Kansas City Chiefs in targets, 6 targets so far, 31 yards, and a decent enough receiving grade. Okay. And he's playing a ton of the pass snaps, 42 pass snaps. He run 38 routes. It's more than McKinnon, and it's more than double Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So yes, I think Jerick McKinnon is droppable. PPR pick 2, Drake London, Miles Sanders, Tyler Lockett, Pierce, Raheem must start, or George Pickens. Yeah, I think it's hard to move away from Raheem must start. He absolutely crushed last game. Absolutely crushed. But it's also hard to move away from George Pickens. He's a beast. We saw 10 targets for George Pickens. Tyler Lockett. Wow. So I'm pretty much stuck between Lockett, Mostert, and Pickens. I don't think you'll go wrong with any of those 3. So if it's full PPR, I think you go with Pickens and Lockett, but I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to go with Raheem Mostert. He's an absolute beast, even though he's 32 years old and has a history of leg injuries, soft tissue issues. I would go lean with the wide receivers, but I don't mind Raheem Mostert in this matchup. Okay, let's talk through some start sits, and we'll talk through some Thursday night stuff and let's start with the New York Giants, right? And Daniel Jones, which we're all, Daniel Jones, right? 63% completion, 6.7 yards per attempt. He's thrown 3 picks, only 2 passing touchdowns on the season. And you're thinking to yourself, well, Bradley, what about the rushing? And Daniel Jones does have 102 rushing yards on the season. He has a touchdown, but he has 2 fumbles as well. Yards after contact per attempt, 1.68 for Daniel Jones. Compare that to Barkley. Barkley has nearly double that. Yikes. So Daniel Jones as a quarterback, I think, obviously we're fading Daniel Jones. I think he's, outside of our top 15 of quarterbacks for this week. He gets the San Francisco 49ers. He lost an offensive lineman. He lost Saquon Barkley. So I think that Daniel Jones is a player that, like, Obviously, big plays can happen, and we can talk about some of the wide receivers that could be interesting, deep cuts in your lineup as we're moving forward. But I'd be looking for other streaming options for Daniel Jones. There are better streamers out there. I know some leagues, a couple leagues, still have Kirk Cousins available. As crazy as that sounds, you should be playing Kirk Cousins very easily over Daniel Jones. I mean, the Vikings are passing at an historic rate, 78% pass rate. 78%. I looked through the last 13 years, and that's the highest rate of pass by 10%. Now, 2 games is a small sample size, but you've got to like what you're seeing from the Minnesota Vikings and how the pass volume is elevating Kirk Cousins. So let's take a look here at a few things about Daniel Jones. As I said, not very impressive overall. Jones, 63% completion is mediocre, right? It's in the bottom half of quarterbacks. His passing grade is much better, middle of the pack, nothing crazy. But the turnover worthy plays, yeah, Daniel Jones, 15th. He's averaging 3.3% turnover worthy play rate. The mistakes are there, and it's costing the Giants. We haven't seen a get-right game, and against the San Francisco 49ers, traveling to San Francisco on a short week, it's just a recipe for disaster for Daniel Jones. So obviously, like, these are professional athletes. These are NFL players. But if there's a pathway for Daniel Jones to be, a top 10 fantasy quarterback, it's not going to be this week. I mean, Daniel Jones right now is quarterback 28 in fantasy points per game. Yes, he had 31 this past game against Arizona, but he was against Arizona, y'all. Arizona. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown. And if you're not crushing against Arizona, I mean, come on. Come on. Yeah, so 18, 19 fantasy points per game. That's not going to get it done against a tough defense. Like, we're going from Arizona cakewalk to San Francisco. He's going to be under pressure all night. And just for kicks and giggles, let's take a look at his passing pressure grades. Daniel Jones. Oh boy, are you ready? Daniel Jones, a 43 pass grade under pressure. He's 26th out of 33 qualified quarterbacks in PFF pass grade while under pressure. It's just very bad. He's just bad. And with an even worse offensive line now and no Saquon as a trusty player out of the backfield, Daniel Jones is a fade this week. I don't see how you can start him comfortably in 10 or 12 team leagues. All right, cool. One more question. Would you start Gabe Davis or Zay Jones? Yeah, we're starting Gabe Davis. That's an easy one. We like Gabe Davis. There we go. I accepted Cook for Garrett. Now I have Gus Edwards, James Cook, Khalil Herbert, Gainwell, Breida. Who am I starting? I got Debo, Addison, Sky Moore, Tank Dell, Gabe Davis. Who am I starting? If you're starting 2 running backs, it's James Cook. Ooh. And if Justice Hill misses, you're going with Gus Edwards. Now, we can talk through Khalil Herbert. I think Herbert is going to be the lead back, but it's Chicago against Kansas City, one of the tougher defenses in the NFL, number 1. Number 2, we don't expect Chicago to be scoring a lot. Number 3 is that Roshan Johnson is starting to breathe down Khalil Herbert's back a little bit. It's still Herbert's backfield. Let's not get carried away. It's not week 6 yet when Roshan very well may be taking over. But when it comes to who should you be picking, it's clearly James Cook. And then if Justice Hill misses, Gus Edwards. But The reason why I'm a little skeptical about Gainwell is because what we saw about DeAndre Swift, right? How can we have confidence in either Gainwell or Swift given that situation? I'm hoping that Gainwell is still out for this game. That way we can, make that easier for ourselves. And we're probably not starting Breida. I'll talk about Breida here in a little bit, but I'm not looking to be starting Matt Breida in lineups if I can help it. Even though it is a hashtag revenge game, right? Matt Breida versus the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. So yeah, let's talk Matt Breida. Let's pull him up here. Running back Matt Breida is expected to be the number 2 back, behind Barkley, obviously. Saquon dealing with that ankle injury, but only 3 carries on the season. And then if we look at even in the most recent season, 2022, there was one game where Matt Breida played over 50% of snaps last year. He had 4 carries, but he ran 22 routes, caught 7 passes for 40 yards, finished as the running back 23 with 11 fantasy points. And I think about 12 fantasy points is the ceiling for Matt Breida. If he falls in the end zone, maybe he gets to that, 18 to salvage, a mid-pack running back 2, maybe low-end running back 1 week. But we haven't seen that type of week from Matt Breida, like a top 12 week. I mean, we've got top 13 back week 10 of 2021. He got 18 fantasy points. Yeah, because he had 2 touchdowns, only 3 carries in that game. That was wild. And then back in 2020, the best that he was at was running back 36. So you have to go back to 2019. Yeah, finally we get a running back 4 scenario where 2019, week 5 against Cleveland, 11 carries, 129 total yards, 2 touchdowns, running back 4 for the week. 2019, though, Matt Breida is 28 and a half years old. Yes, he's fast, but it's clear that over the last couple of years, Matt Breida has not been trusted to handle a significant workload at all. Could it be Gary Brightwell? Sure. Could it be Eric Gray? Sure. If there's a guy who's going to get the most touches, my bet is going to be Matt Breida. But it's not a strong bet, and I'm not looking to put New York Giants into my lineup, especially if we don't think they're going to be scoring a lot of points. Then there's not the touchdown equity, right? There's not the touchdown possibility for Breida or any of the other running backs. Variance is going to fall a certain way, but Matt Breida is most likely not going to be a fantasy relevant running back. And by that, I mean being even top 20 for the week. I would be very surprised. Okay. Start to full PPR. Kenny Stay Trill, Puka Nacua, Mostert, Rashad White, Zay Flowers, Kyron Williams, Drake London. Wow. Start 2. Wow. I think you're starting Puka. And I think you're starting Kyron Williams. They're getting the volume, baby. I like Mostert as well. Mostert, I don't think you'll go wrong with either. Zay Flowers gets a really juicy matchup against Indy. I like those players as well. I'm not excited about Rashad White because I think he's a fraud. I think Rashad White is a fraud. He faced Chicago last week, and Chicago made him look good. But if you remember, week 1, Chicago made Aaron Jones look like the running back 1 overall. And he would have had even more damage had Aaron Jones not pulled his hamstring. Whatever. Neither here nor there. Kyron Williams is handling the load. Puka Nacua is handling the load. Drake London is very risky in that Atlanta offense. I don't want pieces of that if I can help it. So I don't mind if you start Mostert or Zay Flowers, but my leans are Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams, even on the same team. And just a refresher, the LA Rams thank you guys for bearing with my voice here tonight. Where did they go? The Rams play Monday night against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Over-under is 44. I think the anticipation for that game, though, is that Joe Burrow is not playing. I don't think the over-under 44 is going to be still there if we get clarity that Joe Burrow is going to play. So that's why I'm starting those guys. I think it's going to be much more high scoring. I think it's going to be more of a over-under of 47. There we go. Samaje Perine or Antonio Gibson? Oof. Yeah, so I saw Eric Bieniemy. A stat was popping up on my Twitter feed about, shout out to whoever was tracking that, but they said that Bieniemy is really shifting gears in how running backs are being used and their receptions out of the backfield. So these screen passes, right? So Antonio Gibson, we know he's got the speed. We know he's got the athletic profile, but it's a matter of, is he going to break one, for your fantasy team? I think that answer it remains to be seen. But let's look at what he's done so far from the rushing perspective. Antonio Gibson, 5 carries, 18 yards, and a fumble. Yikes. That's not going to get it done. But if we look at the receiving game for Antonio Gibson, 4 catches, 54 yards, 5 targets through 2 games. 63 receiving grade is not great. But the fact that he's run 42 routes as a running back, I mean, the only players who have run more routes for the Washington Commanders, you've got Logan Thomas as the tight end. You got Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. That's it. The next highest route runner is Antonio Gibson. So we'll take that. But he's also in on a lot of third downs to pass block. And Gibson's pass block rate is 69.6, which is very, very good. We're happy about that. He's blocking as well as some of his other tight end counterparts. And this is a significant shift from what Antonio Gibson was doing in year 1 and year 2 of his career. In year 1 and year 2, 21 and 45 pass block rates. Now over the last 2 seasons, 75 and 69.6. So Gibson getting much better in the third down work and third down role. And the receiving game, 5 targets, 4 receptions so far in the season. We've yet to see him really break one out. So we're waiting for the breakout for Antonio Gibson. There's enough there for us to be optimistic. But the question is, okay, is it Antonio Gibson or are we going to talk about Samaje Perine? And Samaje Perine right now, from just the rushing perspective, 9 carries through 2 games, 45 yards, 55 rush grade. That's not getting it done. It's clearly Javonte Williams. So let's get some Antonio Gibson into our lineups. I think he's got the juice. He's got the athleticism. He's got more of the usage. We're happier with that. Okay. SPUD 2009. What do you do if you have Cam Akers on your team? Well, this is a good transition, right? Cam Akers, for those who missed it, was traded to the Minnesota Vikings in exchange for a swapping of 6th and 7th round picks in 2025. It's mostly nothing. It's mostly a procedural move to get Cam Akers over to Minnesota, where Alexander Mattison has not been good. The Minnesota Vikings, yes, they don't run the ball much, but it's a chicken and egg scenario, right? You wonder if it's because Alexander Mattison is not good at running the football. The coaching staff, O'Connell's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't rush it very much with Alexander Mattison. Also, this guy is not getting, the goods for us. So we should not be, going after going after Alexander Madison. This is pretty disastrous for Alexander Madison, because for those who don't remember, Cam Akers started his rookie year under Kevin O'Connell as the offensive coordinator for the LA Rams. And there were, in just Cam Akers' rookie season, 8 different games where Akers had at least 10 rush attempts. So Cam Akers, and then we look at what he did, at the end of the season. We saw games where this is the 2020 season, 21 for 72 and a touchdown, 29 for 171 against New England. We all remember that game. 15 for 63. And then the playoffs against Seattle, 28 for 131. And then against Green Bay, 18 for 90. Both of those games, Seattle and Green Bay had a touchdown as well. And then 2021, remember, he was hurt. He came back for the playoffs, and O'Connell was still the offensive coordinator. Akers played in all of the playoff games, handled at least 13 carries in every single game for Kevin O'Connell and the offensive coordinator at the time. And now he's in Minnesota. Now the question is, who is worse, Cam Akers or Alexander Madison? And the profiles is very clear who's better. It's Cam Akers is the better profile. Akers with the better draft capital, better pass production as the starter in scenarios. But the eyebrow raises are he's on a new team, but maybe that's ameliorated by the fact that it's the same offensive coordinator he's had for 2 years. And it's also that the Vikings actually traded for him. They didn't just wait for him to be cut or put on waivers. So I think there is a little bit more optimism than what I'm feeling like in my doom scrolling through Twitter. I think Cam Akers is a decent enough pickup. I think it's worth, if Cam Akers was dropped in any of your leagues, I think he's worth picking up because he can get the volume of, let's say, 13 to 15 carries, and he can easily push Alexander Madison aside. I've been saying Alexander Madison is just a guy for the entirety of the summer. And that's why I was pounding the table for Dwayne McBride, which, whatever. I'll take the L on Dwayne McBride. I love Dwayne McBride. Because sometimes you got to have your truth or people. But Dwayne McBride was one of my people. But it was speaking to the process of identifying Alexander Madison, not a player that I want to be heavy on in best ball drafts over the summer. We knew he was a fragile asset. I think I have 5% Alexander Madison, and almost all of it, I think all of it was late, significantly after ADP. That was the only reason I was taking Alexander Madison. I had 8% Cam Akers, so I was right in line with the market. That's fine. I didn't have a strong take on Akers, but the fact that he's now in Minnesota, we do talk about the small-ish rush volume, because only 22% of plays ended up being runs for the Vikings through the first 2 games. I think that does shift back and regress to the mean, or your imaginary mean for Minnesota, and the addition of Cam Akers can support that. We saw Akers at the end of last year play very well, right? 17 for 60, 2 touchdowns, 12 for 42 and touchdown, 12 for 65 and 3 for 35 through the air. So 100 total yards. Against Denver, 23 for 118 and 2 for 29 through the air. 19 for 123, 21 for 104. Cam Akers played very well at the end of last year. If we look 2022 and we select the weeks that Cam Akers got the volume, so week 13 and beyond, among running backs, okay, Cam Akers was 5th in PFF rush grade, actually minimal attempts. Let's at least do like Cam Akers was 4th in PFF rush grade. Cam Akers was number 1 in touchdowns from weeks 13 to 18 last year. And Cam Akers 24 missed tackles forced. That was third among all running backs at that from that point on. So there have been, when he's leaned upon heavily, instances where Akers has shown that he can be an efficient back. And when he gets the volume, like at that point, 4.9 yards per carry from weeks 13 to 18, respectable. Okay. Even with a trash offensive line that the LA Rams had by the end of last year. So let's not like poo-poo Cam Akers after one game in 2023. No, let's not poo-poo him. Let's instead just wait a couple weeks, pick him up off waivers. That's fine. If someone dropped him in your league, he's worth a stash, especially in leagues that running backs who have a pulse. Give me some Cam Akers as a stash moving forward. It's clear Alexander Madison is not the guy. We know Alexander Madison is not going to be the guy. So at least Cam Akers might be the guy. All right, cool. Let's see what else. Who did I miss? Okay, Fernando. Who should I start? Debo, Addison, Gabe Davis, Tank Dell, Sky Moore. You're I mean, wow. Okay. Yeah, we're starting. We're either starting Debo or Addison. I think we lean Debo if Brandon Ayuk is ruled out. If Ayuk plays, I don't think this is like they're not going to fake him out. This is not a decoy scenario. That's the word I was looking for. This is not a decoy scenario. If Ayuk is actually in, they're going to put him in. So give me some Debo if Ayuk is out. Give me Addison, though, if Ayuk is in, because this game against the Minnesota Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings host the Chargers, and the over-under for this game in Minnesota is 54. Holy guacamole. And the Chargers give up the most fantasy points, or they've given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers through the first 2 weeks in PPR scoring. So Jordan Addison is a start this week. And especially in a game that could get really high scoring, give me some Jordan Addison. Evening, Bradley. Go Gin. Just got home done with the home errands. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. If you like the content, you find this helpful, smash the subscribe button, guys. I appreciate all y'all doing that. Captain Joe King, loving the stream. Already sub. Let's go. Thank you, Captain. Thanks for joining me tonight. Kind of dumb question. Should I trade my Dallas D for Kyron Williams? I'm just starstruck by the points the defense is giving me. Let's look at the next couple matchups. Why don't we? Let's just humor me here. What does the Dallas schedule look like moving forward? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's going to be hard to trade them away because you've got Arizona in week 3. And they're starting Dobbs again, probably. You've got New England. And New England has looked better. Don't get me wrong. New England's offense has looked better, like I thought they would. And then you're at San Francisco, which is going to be an interesting matchup. You got the Chargers. The Rams might be in trouble by that point. Philly might be a sit. The Giants, you're probably starting them. So here, you're going to keep them through this week. You're going to keep them through this week. See if the guy is still letting you keep the trade pending. But I would, see if you can trade them away because their bye week is week 7 too. And then they don't have easy matchups really. They've got the Giants and Carolina and Washington back to back to back. But then it's Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, Miami, Detroit as like a murderer's row near the end of the season. That's going to be real tough. So give me Dallas D for this week against Arizona, but then see if you can be, a little shiesty and scam Kyron Williams after you get Dallas to play for you this week. Do you think DeAndre Swift keeps going off? If I were the Philadelphia Eagles coaches, and this is the flaw, like the fallacy of logical coaching, right? If I were the coaches for the Philadelphia Eagles, I would continue to run Swift into the ground. What do you have to lose? You got Rashad Penny, and you've got Kenny Gainwell, who you actually trust. You've got Boston Scott. You've got other running backs behind him that you trust. Might as well just give it to the most dynamic back you've had since LaShawn McCoy. Mic drop. DeAndre Swift is the real deal. I drafted a lot of DeAndre Swift in the FFPC drafts. So maybe it's the fallacy of logical coaching, but DeAndre Swift can continue to go off. He is an elite ceiling type of running back. I would pick up Cam off waivers if he was there. I'd also be sad if I drafted him at ADP. That is true too. Oh, the landmines, right? I definitely have a couple shares of Cam Akers in my FFPC best ball drafts, but not a lot on underdog. I think I have market rate at 8%. So I wasn't going after him like crazy, but at the same time, a player that I was not fading either. Snag 412. I want to trade for Kamara. Who should I be looking to trade that may accept, but is a steal for me? You want to trade for Kamara, like a trade high or a sell high candidate for Kamara? That's a good question. I would have to take a look at some of the leaders here in scoring. Why don't I take a look at some overperformers? Okay, let me take a look at leaders, players, flex, stats, cumulative, season, done. Okay, so who's someone that you could sell high to get, Alvin Kamara? I mean, if you can sell Tutu Atwell to get Alvin Kamara, yeah, that's fine. If you could sell, it looks like if someone picked up Brandon Johnson or Rashid Shaheed off waivers, I'd try to get them. Kendrick Bourne as well, trade him to get Alvin Kamara. I'm just looking at players, that could be available reasonably that someone might bite on. Maybe they won't bite them, but that's okay. A couple other players that you might consider, like Robert Woods. Someone might be tantalized by his performances. Romeo Doubs, of course. Yeah. Mark is saying that I envy the guy with the Dallas D because week 2 I had the Giants, so negative points. Yikes. I have Jags this week. Good choice. Is it better for the Ravens, Browns, Seahawks? Wow. Okay. Well, let's look at some rankings here. Week 3. Yeah, Dallas is my number 1, of course, for this week. The Ravens are 6. The Browns are 7. The Seahawks are 4 for me this week. And the Jaguars are 9. So that's how I would have them, Mark. And, my rankings will be updated tomorrow on Fantasy Pros. So if you have Fantasy Pros, you can check out my rankings there. I'll be updating it on Thursday night, a little bit before kickoff. Actually, what I do typically on Thursday night, so I do an initial set of rankings like earlier in the day on Thursday. And I do my player profiler live stream. So if you want to go to playerprofiler.com and you can check out like all the player profiles there. There's awesome data there. It's where I get a lot of my stuff. Also, shout out to Player Profiler because they're the best in the industry. But the YouTube channel for Player Profiler every Thursday from 7:30 until 8, I do a half-hour tailgate with y'all where we talk through start-sit questions regarding players in the Thursday night slots. So it's real cool. So if you want to check that out, it's the Player Profiler YouTube channel, Thursdays, 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern, right before the games. And then what I do for that 20 minutes before, kickoff, well, 15 minutes, I guess, because the kickoff on Thursday is 8:15. I have 15 minutes to do some final updates. So that's what I do to my rankings. But that'll be reflected there. And speaking of rankings, I finished out of 213 rankers this past week. I finished second among tight ends and in the top 50 overall, which is really cool. So, yeah, I've got some. I may miss on some. I might hit on some, but I mean, you're talking to someone who's one of the best in the industry when it comes to rankings. And you can see for yourself. Go to Fantasy Pros, look at where we're ranked. I finished in the top 50 this past week out of over 200 people who are paid full time in the industry to do this thing, and I'm kicking their butts. So there we go. Let's keep rolling here. A couple more questions. And then we'll get into some more Thursday night plays. Flex Herbert, Roshan, Reed, or Mingo this week. You're still flexing Herbert in half PPR. Doesn't feel great. But if this game becomes a blowout, I wouldn't be surprised if Roshan gets a little bit more passing work and we see what kind of happened in that Packers game be replicated. So let's go Roche. It's half PPR. I think the game script is going to go in favor of Roshan being more useful. So I'd go Roshan. Would you trade Ford for Amari Cooper in half PPR? Yeah, I would trade Jerome Ford or trade Amari Cooper to get Jerome Ford. I would have Ford ahead of Cooper rest of season. I got Kirk, Stevenson, Hall, Keenan, Diggs, Olave, Hunter, Judy, Cup, Sanders. Whew. Any tips what to trade for, etc.? Feels like you need a running back too, and your Cup is in trouble. You're probably floundering. You're probably 1-1 is my guess. Yeah, you're probably 1-1. And I don't know if there's ever good news that pops up, like just trade Cup away. Trade Judy away. There's always some wild person in a league who loves Jerry Judy. There are Jerry Judy lovers, believe me or not. Believe me, DXRKZ. Someone will love Jerry Judy in your league, in your bubble, in your world. There's a Judy lover, believe me. So trade Judy away. See if you can package him with, Cooper Cup and see if you can get another really solid flex. You already have Keenan, Diggs, and Olave. Maybe get a running back. Who would be a good running back to target there? I don't know if you can get James Cook. That would be awesome. I'm really high on James Cook. Same thing with going after Kenneth Walker. Get some Kenneth Walker in your life. Okay. DeAndre Swift. Yeah, see if you can do that. You want to upgrade. All right, cool. Kendrick Bourne or Zay Jones? We're going to go with Zay Jones. As I like to say, it's better to Zay too much, not Zay what you need to Zay. Nick9111. Is it time to bail on Najee? What kind of wide receiver do you think I could get for him? Man, the Najee train. I have in my 60 underdog drafts that I did. 60. 0 Najee. 0. Oh, this is why you follow me, guys. This is why you subscribe to the channel. I could have told you. I'm telling you, Najee is there. Find the Pittsburgh Steelers guy who's delusional in your league and trade Najee away. See if you still can, because he's somehow being projected as a top 15 back. Excuse me, but that's not going to, work out because he's had a combined 16 carries for 74 yards and been on average the running back 44. And yes, he gets Vegas this week, which is a better matchup, but it's at Vegas. I'm not going out of my way to start Najee Harris. If you can get anything for Najee Harris, my oh my. Yeah, if someone is freaked out about Breece Hall, Sounds good to me. Gus Edwards, I would have over Najee Harris, as wild as that sounds. Yeah. Yeah, that's who I would go with. Okay, cool. Let's talk some Thursday night. So let's talk. I've talked about Matt Breida. Darren Waller is going to be pretty much a tight end to auto start for you. There's no reason to move away from Waller. Waller leads all tight ends in receiving yards. You're starting Darren Waller. There, as I said, like you drafted Waller to be your starting tight end. There's no moving away from that, especially because if Saquon, Saquon is out, it's a very simple logic. Saquon is out. Darren Waller is going to get more targets because he's the best target earner on the team. Saquon is the second best target earner on the team. And the second best is out. There's not very good options to back him up. It's going to be Darren Waller just getting more because Waller is an alpha. Alphas eat first. It's very simple logic. Start your Darren Waller. If the Giants are going to be at all competitive in this game, it's going to be because Darren Waller is feasting. So give me some Darren Waller. Also, I mean, we saw the 49ers are vulnerable enough. Puka Nacua just absolutely gobbled against the 49ers. So they're beatable. It's not impossible. Let's talk Paris Campbell. I got a lot of flack over the summer about Paris Campbell. I said Paris Campbell was bad because Paris Campbell was bad. And then a lot of people were saying, well, Bradley, he's going to earn the targets. He's going to be a spike week candidate. He's going to be a guy that, we want. And I pushed back and said, well, pretty much everything about what you're saying is not true. He's not a good wide receiver. He's not going to get the type of volume that's going to lead to spike weeks. We don't want it. We just don't want it. So, yeah, let's not look at like the preseason. Let's just look at what's happened so far. Paris Campbell, 5 receptions, 10 targets, 23 total yards. 23 total yards in 2 games. You are not starting Paris Campbell. How foolish of you to think that you would start Paris Campbell. Do not start Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell is bad at football. He is not a good route runner. He is not a good wide receiver. I told you this, though, last year or over the summer. Look at my tweets. Search at FF Stalder on Twitter, Paris Campbell. You'll find all the tweets. I got my receipts. Y'all can come at me. Paris Campbell is garbage. He is garbage. He has the worst receiving grade among all the wide receivers on the New York Giants by far. Sterling Shepard is coming back from an ACL tear, and he has a better receiving grade. Okay, that's how bad Paris Campbell is through the first 2 games, and yet Paris Campbell is running the routes. He's 66 receiving routes through 2 games and playing mostly out of the slot. The only thing Paris Campbell is doing is annoying Darren Waller in the slot. That's it. If anything, getting Paris Campbell out of there is like addition by subtraction for the Giants. This is so bad. It's so bad. Among wide receivers with at least 6 targets. This is how bad it gets. Paris Campbell is 88th of 88 wide receivers. He is the worst receiving grade wide receiver among all wide receivers with at least 6 targets. There are 88 of them, and he's the worst. The worst. The worst. So this is why you follow me over the summer. I could have told you, don't draft, don't play, don't think about Paris Campbell at all. Literally, Kadarius Toney, who had the worst single receiving grade game in PFF's last 5 years. You add Kadarius Toney's week 2, and he's still better than what Paris Campbell has done in terms of receiving grade. Yeah, Paris Campbell is really, 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 really bad. And then in terms of yards per route run, Campbell is 87th of 88. The only one worse, another wide receiver I told you not to be drafting. Josh Palmer. I told y'all not to be drafting Josh Palmer, Paris Campbell. Donovan Peoples-Jones is also there, but I don't know if he meets the target requirement. Donovan Peoples-Jones was a player I told y'all to be staying away from. Where is Peoples-Jones? Yes, Donovan Peoples-Jones is 130th out of 136 in yards per route run. So far, 3 for 3. We're seeing how that's going. Nice, Bradley. I'll take the victory laps on players to avoid late in your fantasy drafts. I mean, I could have told you. I did tell you, but whatever. Okay, I'm getting derailed here in just told you so's in victory laps over Paris Campbell just being bad. And here's the thing: is his athletic profile is deceiving. He had 4.2 something speed out of Ohio State, 2nd round pick for the Indianapolis Colts. But he can't stay healthy. But even when he was healthy, just atrocious. So he's either bad at football or he's one of the unluckiest wide receivers we've ever seen. What do you think it is? It's not luck. It's not luck. It's because he's bad. Okay, but let's shift gears here to Darius Slayton. Okay. Because Darius Slayton for the New York Giants is better. This is a better selection for us. Yeah, 2023. Why is it not showing up? Minimum, no. Select all. I'm just making sure my filters are on correctly so I can not be speaking out of my rear end. I'm usually not like fact checked because I get my facts right. But Darius Slayton, 62 receiving grade, ties for the team high in wide receiver targets with 10 so far this season. 6 for 10, 77 yards, does not have a touchdown on the season. But he's playing full-time role, which is nice. It's just a matter of, is he going to come down with the ball? And the answer has not been not so far. His ADOT is 16.5, so he's a big play waiting to happen. This is typical Darius Slayton. We've seen Slayton in his career just be a high ADOT type of guy. In fact, 14, 14, 13, 12, and then this year 16.5 is the average depth of target for Darius Slayton. So he's getting targeted very much down the field. We like that for a boom play. So if you need some upside swings, this was a guy that I was taking around 18, 19, 20 in my fantasy drafts because he was at least a little bit better at football. And he had the high spike week potential because of the high ADOT and his previous production. We had seen a couple spike weeks in the past from Darius Slayton, which is why we can be targeting him. And if we're in a desperation flex spot, at least this is a guy with a pulse. Okay. Isaiah Hodgins has disappointed a little bit so far this year. I'm not here for what Isaiah Hodgins has put forth so far in the 2023 season, right? Hodgins a 58 receiving grade, 16 fumble grade. He does have a touchdown, which has salvaged his fantasy season so far, but 5 for 64 on 8 targets is not the type of volume that we want. It was what I was worried about. I felt like it was a very flat tier with adding Jalen Hyatt, adding Paris Campbell, adding Darren Waller, that Isaiah Hodgins, he was just going to get chipped at. And so, and not a player that I'm super excited about, averaging 32 yards per game, not going to get it done for us. He is running the 3rd most routes among wide receivers, 56 so far through the first 2 games. That's behind Slayton and Campbell. So Hodgins playing mostly on the outside, 88% out wide. That's the most, or that's the highest rate of all Giants wide receivers. But I wonder if Hodgins is going to start to fade away in favor of the next wide receiver, Jalen Hyatt. Now, Jalen Hyatt has the highest PFF receiving grade, but only 32 pass snaps so far on the season. This is about the same usage as Jaden Reed. So we think that and Marvin Mims, I think that they're going to get integrated more and more. But in this San Francisco matchup, I don't anticipate Jalen Hyatt taking on a full-time role. But if you need some spike week potential, we just saw, Jalen Hyatt have a 58-yard play in the Arizona game and then come back for another 30-yard play. He has 2 catches for 89 yards on the season. I'm not hating that. 3rd-round pick by the Giants this year. He's got 4.4 speed, and he's learning his routes. He's getting better. So I'm interested in taking a couple shots on Jalen Hyatt. He's your definition of boom bust. But you're starting Darius Slayton over Jalen Hyatt. Let's not get cute. But that's how we're handling the Jalen Hyatt situation. We like his production profile in college, Blitnikoff Award winner, but starting slow, not getting a ton of snaps, definitely a spike week candidate. He spiked against a bad Arizona defense. I know that San Francisco is a little bit more vulnerable, but San Francisco may be pressuring Daniel Jones a lot, and Jones has thrown three interceptions already. It'll be interesting to see if Jalen Hyatt is going to be getting more snaps and seeing if the Giants can take advantage of the San Francisco 49ers focus on getting pressure. All right, let's take a look at a couple more comments. Randy Miller, thanks for tuning in. Trade Amon-Ra, ETN, Dotson for Ridley, Kenneth Walker, Zach Moss. No, I would keep Amon-Ra. Yeah, I think Amon-Ra is going to be just fine. I know that he has the turf toe, but he's been dealing with that for the last, in the last week. And let's look at what he did. Like you say, it may not have the spike week potential for Amon-Ra, but I mean, you can't argue with 6 for 102 and a better receiving grade. So I'm not worried right now unless we hear something different, unless we actually hear that Amon-Ra is not expected to play. They're just taking it easy and slow with him for the right now in the practices. So I'm not too worried at this point. Should I trade Amon-Ra and Breece Hall for Walker and Ridley? Is that any better? Yes, it is better. I think it's better. Yeah, give me the Kenneth Walker side. I think that is better. Giants always pull a wide receiver out of the backside. Even Paris Campbell's mama dropped Paris Campbell. That's very funny. That is very funny. C-Crip, long time no talk. How you doing, C-Crip? Quarterback should I stream? Purdy, Geno, Stafford, Stroud, Russ, or Baker? Wow, that's a lot. I mean, Purdy's the safe play here. Like Geno, we've seen some ups and downs, but let's look at some of these matchups, right? So Purdy gets the Giants. We expect he's going to be a safe, 12 to 15 point play. He's not going to bust for you. Geno and the Seahawks this week, they take on the Carolina Panthers. That's not something that I'm like, it's what, 24 to 18 is what the over-under is projecting. I'm not looking forward to that, especially because we know Kenneth Walker is going to dominate a lot. So I'm here for that. If Joe Burrow plays, I could see Stafford being a really nice play. I'm not encouraged by CJ Stroud. I mean, it's because of Indy and their defense that Stroud played well enough. Denver, that matchup against the Dolphins is very interesting. It's at Miami. I kind of like that. So maybe Russ as your play here. And then Tampa, yeah, gets the Eagles. Give me Russ out of these. If you want upside, give me Purdy if you want safety. Okay, cowbell. I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell. Hey, man, got a trade on my block. Give Pollard, Adams, Zach Ertz. Get Tyreek, James Conner, Javonte, Tyler Higbee. Yeah, I would just keep the Pollard Adams side. I keep the Pollard Adams side. Pollard and Adams is better than Tyreek Hill and James Conner. I have Hill higher than Adams, but Pollard significantly higher than the others, than the pieces that you'd be getting back. So no. Warrior Loft. Oh, it's been a minute. How you doing, bro? There we go. Look at us. We're in week 3. Giving fantasy football advice. We're 71 minutes in. If y'all are liking the content, find this helpful, smash the sub. Smash the sub. Okay. Do you think Geno can support all 3 wide receivers, Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN? I'm starting to feel Geno can't even support himself some weeks. That's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. And I think he's going to still be integrating JSN in. You have to remember JSN broke his hand. Like, he has a fracture in his hand. So I think it's going to be Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN in the right game script. So I think it's going to be more game script dependent than whether Geno can handle it or not. Okay. Let's get some San Francisco 49ers in here. Brock Purdy, as I mentioned, you're already starting Brock Purdy. He's set it and forget it, quarterback 2. Safe play. You're going to see a lot of dump offs to Debo. You're going to see a lot of dump offs to Chris McCaffrey. It's why, like, even with game scripts like what we will see in the Thursday night game where the Giants travel to San Francisco, all Purdy needs is like a dump off touchdown to McCaffrey or a dump off touchdown to Debo, and that salvages his day. He doesn't even need Ayuk, and Ayuk is questionable for this game. So Brock Purdy is a player that you're starting as a high-end quarterback too. Okay. Debo Samuel has wide receiver like top 12 upside this week, especially with Brandon Ayuk questionable. We should be finding ways to get Debo Samuel into our lineups. He's going to be used in the rushing game. He's going to be used in the passing game. He's going to be used in all different types of ways. And especially if Ayuk is out, we've seen Debo. I mean, Debo has handled a 25% median target share each of the last 2 seasons. Even in a bad season for Debo Samuel, he was still getting a quarter of the targets. So, yeah, we like Debo Samuel this week. The Giants are middle of the pack against wide receivers in terms of fantasy points allowed. So, Debo is fine. You're firing him up. Brandon Ayuk, on the other hand, you are probably not going to be firing up because we're concerned about his shoulder injury. I mentioned at the top of the broadcast that we should prepare for Ayuk to not play given the shoulder injury, the short turnaround. The 49ers are at home. They've got 10 days. There's not a rush. It's the beginning of the season. There's a lot of excuses. If Ayuk wants to go out there and play, he'll go out there and play for sure. And I don't think he'll be a decoy, but you're going to play Debo Samuel this week, even if Ayuk is active. All right, the last player that I want to talk about is Kareem Hunt tonight. For those who missed the news as well, we had the Cam Akers trade to Minnesota, and we had Kareem Hunt re-signing with the Cleveland Browns. This is a big deal. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal for fantasy managers, but it is a big deal for the real NFL. Kareem Hunt off the table, and I think that was a domino effect for the Cam Akers negotiations and everything, because if Hunt is off the market, then the Browns are not going to be exploring Cam Akers, a trade for Akers, and it was probably just too much value given up for Kareem Hunt or for Cam Akers. If that's what they could just sign Kareem Hunt to a 1-year deal, boom, boom, we're out of here. So Kareem Hunt, 1 year, $4 million deal. And you're probably thinking to yourself, but Bradley, how do we know that Jerome Ford is the guy? How do we know that Kareem Hunt isn't just going to come in and be the guy and overtake Jerome Ford? Now, you've come to the Best Bell Fantasy podcast. You have known me for maybe a short amount of time, maybe a long amount of time. The whole point of Best Bell is we're talking about Best Bell curves. What is the range of outcomes for players? And what is a reasonable expectation for those players based on what we know? What we know is that Kareem Hunt was not re-signed. Jerome Ford was chosen as the number 2 back. We know that Jerome Ford had been trusted with over 30 carries during the first 2 games. It wasn't a split backfield. We also know that there was serious chatter this offseason. Like I went to the FSGA conference in Cleveland. There were people there who were talking, and they said, I got it at the FSGA conference. People in Cleveland were positively chatting up Jerome Ford even back in May. So there is organizational push to have Kareem Hunt off and Jerome Ford on. But now with Nick Chubb out, Kareem Hunt, it makes sense to bring Kareem Hunt in. He knows the system and he can play a role. Last year, Kareem Hunt was top 25 in terms of running back target share. He was top 20 in routes run for running backs. But what was the problem is he was 60th in terms of yards per touch. Or he was outside the top 40 in yards per touch and true yards per carry. He was bad last year in terms of efficiency. And that's where Jerome Ford seems to have some more metrics, because Kareem Hunt is not a young pup anymore. He doesn't have the speed and burst like he once did. And it's showing up because Kareem Hunt had the really low yards per carry and the really low yards per touch, but he still had a high juke rate and a high missed tackles forced rate, which means that he was making people miss and he was trying to make moves to make people miss, but still was not getting far. He was still not getting the yards he needed, even though he was doing what was successful for him previously in his career. So there's the age cliff, the production profile from last year that is concerning for Kareem Hunt. So there's a lot of reasons for us to be confident that Jerome Ford is going to be the early down back. Kareem Hunt probably going to profile as the third down back still. But this first week, in week 3, I mean, it's Jerome Ford. It's going to be Jerome Ford. And Kareem Hunt probably going to get 10, 12, whatever touches. But Kareem Hunt is not going to get 10, 12 touches. He might get 10, 12 snaps in this first game against Tennessee. But no, we're leaning into Jerome Ford as a volume running back too. So is Jerome Ford going to have bust weeks? Sure thing. Is he going to have spike weeks? Sure thing. We know that Cleveland likes to run the ball, which is why, as I said, Jerome Ford is going to be a mid-pack running back too based on volume. I think Jerome Ford is better than Josh Kelly, but Kareem Hunt is not a player that I am like rushing to the waiver wire and going out and getting and saying, hey, I'm pounding the table for Kareem Hunt. That's not me. Can't be me. So do not overbid for Kareem Hunt. Sorry, guys. Okay. I think that does it for here. Let me just look at a few other questions. Someone dropped Elijah Moore. Would you drop JSN for Elijah Moore? Elijah Moore is getting the targets, but I like the Seattle offense better. And I think it's only a matter of time before JSN really spikes. So give me JSN long term. If Ayuk doesn't play, would you start Nico Collins or DK Metcalf? We're starting DK Metcalf. Yep, that's pretty easy. Sorry, it is what it is. Seattle, as I said earlier, is facing off against Carolina, and even though it's not going to be a high-scoring game, we still like DK Metcalf as a top 15 wide receiver. Nico Collins faced off against Indy, and Indy's secondary is very bad. So there you go. Thomas got quarterback Fields, starting Gibbs. Kenneth Walker need 2 wide receivers, 2 flex. We're playing Amon-Ra. We're playing Dotson. We're playing Kyron Williams, and we're playing Swift. That's who I would go with. Braden Schaefer. I have the second wave. Should I go for Jerome Ford or Kareem Hunt? Jerome Ford. Yeah, we're going with Jerome Ford here. All right, y'all. This has been a lot of fun. It's been 81 minutes, almost 82 minutes. My voice is somehow still with us. I appreciate all of you. If you haven't subscribed, you do like the content, smash the subscribe button. I appreciate all y'all. I've been seeing the channel grow a lot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to continue to support the channel monetarily, you can throw me some super chats as well. I appreciate all that. Yeah, it's really, really good. Not starting Kyron. Uh-oh, did I miss something? Let me look again. Amon-Ra. Yeah, Watson, I'm 50-50 to play. Even this first week, I'm probably not going to play him. I like Dotson. So it's Amon-Ra, Dotson, Kyron, and Swift. There you go. Perfect. All right, thanks, everyone. Appreciate y'all. Be like Spud 2009. Subscribe. Look forward to it. We're going to keep doing a couple more of these throughout the week. So check it out. Appreciate y'all. Till next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everyone.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next.